And then I'm going to hide my video, and then Sebastian, I'll let you take it off once it says it's recording. I mean, once it's broadcasting.
All right, it looks like we are live now. Thanks to everyone who is joining us today on our session of Where is the Money? This is a session that is part of the San Antonio Startup Week. We are happy that you guys joined us today. If for whatever reason you could not join us, we are recording this session and it will be available via YouTube later on, either today or throughout the weekend. We are excited that you guys have been joining a lot of these sessions. I think San Antonio's got a very strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, and this only shows that we are on the right path for success when it comes to entrepreneurship in our city. Today, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We only got 1 hour, so we're gonna get started really quick. Today's session, like I said before, the title for it is Where's the Money? And that is one of the questions that most entrepreneurs at some point within their entrepreneurial journey start asking themselves. Where can I find funding to start my business or to grow it? And as you know, depending on the type of funding that you end up identifying, then there will be different requirements that you have to meet. And then there will be different action points that you'll end up taking after getting that funding. So we've got a couple or a few people on our panel today. We've got 5 of them. Each one of them is representing a different funding methodology or a funding agency per se. And I'm gonna let them talk about who they are, what they do, who do they serve, and how you can take advantage of what they have to offer. So really quick, we're gonna get started with our panelists. We're gonna do quick intros so you all know who they are and what they do. And let's get started with Eric Smith.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me today. My name is Eric Smith, and I am the chairperson for the Alamo Angels Selection Committee. So we'll get a chance to be able to talk more about Alamo Angels here locally. But I've been a part of the committee now for about a year. Recently, here in the past couple months, they asked me to be the chairperson. So been working with startups and entrepreneurs, figuring out how Angels can best fit their current needs and being a point person to the rest of the membership for Alamo Angels.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Thanks for joining us today. David Elizondo.
Hi, good afternoon. First off, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we always have those IT issues. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Elizondo, the Deputy District Director for the U.S. Small Business Administration here in San Antonio. I've been in this position for a little over a year now. I've been with SBA for about 3 years now. Our office does cover San Antonio and the Austin market and everything in between. And traditionally, SBA is known for their loan programs. And of course, during COVID, we've been instrumental with administering the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. But in speaking with Sebastian, we have other programs available that's more than just loan programs. It's also grant programs, which we'll go more in depth with today. So I wanted to say thank you to Sebastian for allowing SBA to participate in today's function.
Thank you, David. All right, next up we've got Orestes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Orestes Hubbard here. I also want to thank Sebastian for the invite. I work for the University of Texas San Antonio out of the Institute for Economic Development. I manage the MBDA centers. They're minority centers funded by the Minority Business Development Agency. One of the key functions of our job is to provide technical assistance to minority-owned firms to have access to capital. So we are going to be talking in a few minutes about the traditional lending side, how to go about securing funding, going through a traditional bank, and we're going to go in a little bit more detail about how to be successful on that particular goal. Thank you.
Luis Martinez.
Hello, thank you, Sebastian, again for assembling this great panel and an opportunity to talk about sort of where the money is. My name is Dr. Luis Martinez. I'm the Director for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Trinity University here in San Antonio. And I'll be speaking to the ecosystem of pitch competitions as a way for people to fund their business. Many of them are located in colleges and universities. So I'll talk a little bit about sort of what Trinity does as well as what other universities are doing. But for those of you who may not be in college, to sort of show you sort of the feasibility of funding your business via pitch competitions, which is a great way to sort of get some capital.
Awesome. Thank you, Luis. Cole?
Hey, it's Cole Wallach here. Stepping in for Mike Troy. So if you saw Mike's name on the initial application, I'm stepping in for him. I work with the Geekdom Fund. I work with Mike very closely at the Geekdom Fund. I also run the RealCo Accelerator. So we do venture investment into early stage technology companies, as early as initial idea, a few customers, up to kind of supporting companies through a growth phase, through venture investing, a bunch of capital. So happy to share more as we get into it.
Awesome, Cole. Thank you so much for stepping in. All right, well, let's deep dive into what each one of you guys have to offer. I know that we've got an audience here that may be at different stages within their journey. And so it'll be interesting to know how or where is the better fit, depending on what they are. So let's go back to our first panelist, Eric. You've mentioned you are with Alamo Angels. Tell us a little bit about the Angel Network and tell us a little bit about what type of funding do you guys offer?
Yeah, thank you. So locally, Alamo Angels started back in 2016. And what it was designed for was investment opportunities for startups here in the San Antonio market. The key being San Antonio. We needed a way to find money for our startups and for our entrepreneurs. And so a group of business leaders here locally started that. Here recently, in the past few months, there was an integration with TRTF. And with that, we combined both their resources and expertise with the entrepreneurial community here in town to be able to provide support for our entrepreneurs and startups. The types of companies that we typically are looking for are early stage. They are seed rounds, maybe a small bridge, or maybe even to a Series A. We fill that gap between friends and family and the venture capital or the Geekdom fund or RealCo fund. So we fill that niche, and by doing that, we're providing confidence to the entrepreneur and startup that you can do this because we've already done this. We're providing advice. We are providing a lot of different resources that an entrepreneur may need in the very beginning that will allow this company to be successful.
Thank you, Eric. So I am a little biased because I am the executive director for the group. And so I don't want to spend much time and don't give everybody else the time that they deserve. But I want to deep dive a little bit more on the group itself. Sometimes when people ask me, you know, what is the whole deal with angel networks? And I usually try to come up with an example so that they can relate. And my first question is, have you watched Shark Tank, right? And so then they are like, oh, okay, that's type of how it is. Can you provide people that have never heard of an angel network on how dynamic the group is and how the logistics work, you know, about the pitch events, how often do we see companies, all that type of information?
Yeah, so we see companies monthly. We have a process online at alamoangels.com that allows entrepreneurs to go into the website and complete an application. And there's an initial screening process for us that we're interested in. The types of industries typically are the internet, healthcare, manufacturing, consumer products. So, you know, there's a range of different businesses that the angels would like to see. And typically we look at management. We're so early on ideas that we have to like the management team. We have to see the success and the track record. And if you don't have the track record, are you coachable? Are you moldable? We need to know that you are there to be successful with our help as angels. We look at your market. We want to make sure that you have something that is defendable, meaning you have intellectual property, that you will change the world as we know it today based on a cool technology that you may have. We need to know what your solution is going to be for that market. So there are a lot of early intangibles that we have to figure out as angels. And you're not going to necessarily find an angel on a lead investment in an early round. Generally, we're followers, but angels stick together. So if you're working with angel networks across the state with the Alliance Network here in Texas, you're going to be able to see other angels working together and being able to see the deep dives that we're doing because these are really early technologies.
Thank you, Eric. Now, you've mentioned at the beginning companies from San Antonio. What if I am a company, because I know that we've got a lot of people watching from other places here within Texas. So we got people from the Valley, Corpus Christi, even Austin, Houston, Dallas. Could they apply to Alamo Angels as well?
So yeah, we actually receive applications from the local Central Texas down through the Valley, the state of Texas, and we get these either direct from a company looking for angel investment, or we'll receive it from another angel network here in the state. We also receive opportunities that are outside the state of Texas, and those are special companies. You know, those are the companies that if they're going to be outside the state, they have to have some really neat technology, or they have to have some product that is going to change how we know life today. And that's what we're looking for. We do have international opportunities that have come across our desk, and those actually have been scrutinized to a point that, you know, we have the relationships across our network to be able to help other angels with those investment opportunities when we get outside the U.S. So the deals we're comfortable with location. It just has to be the right deal when we start to get outside of our network.
Thank you, Eric. And I guess last but not least, if anyone is looking for more information or wants to submit an application to Alamo Angels, how can they do that?
So the Alamo Angels website is alamoangels.com. And you can find that information under the Entrepreneurs tab, and that will take you to another link where you want to start the process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. As a reminder to everyone watching today, we will have some time towards the end for a Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions for any of our panelists, or maybe a question for all of them, make sure that you type it on the application so that we can get to it and answer the questions towards the end. Eric, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and move on to David Elizondo. David, you are with the SBA. You talked about grants. You talked about other types of funding. Tell us a little bit more about what it is that you guys have to offer.
Great. So again, thank you, Sebastian, for the opportunity. So historically speaking, as I mentioned, a lot of people associate small business administration with the loan programs, but there are other opportunities that exist, and I will have to compliment the Alamo Angels Network, and thank you again to giving me a tour of the facility there to get a better understanding of what you're trying to attract. And I think this is a great opportunity, Sebastian, to talk about the grant programs that SBA has to offer, in particular, the Small Business and Innovation Research Grant and the Small Business Technology and Transfer Program. So for those small business owners that have a niche product, I think that's the key word here is niche, that you can eventually scale up and commercialize the products. The SBA has a program available to help you, and they do it in phases. And so we're helping you along the way where essentially you're selling to the federal government initially, and there's 11 federal agencies participating in this program. And some of the most notable federal agencies that are participating in this program is Department of Defense, NASA, Department of Energy. So imagine getting your products, your services in front of these audiences. And so that's a great opportunity to eventually move from the federal sector into the private sector to commercialize your products. And, you know, it's only for specific industries as well, I will say. So you have to be a for-profit for the SBIR. You have to be 50% or more owned by here in the United States. You can't have no more than 500 employees. But for the STTR, you actually can be a nonprofit. So I'm looking at Mr. or Dr. Luis Martinez. Let's just say Trinity University wants to apply for the STTR program. And it is available for nonprofits, colleges, universities as well. So if you want to have a devoted center to focus on technology and commercialization, you know, this is a great opportunity. So let's just say I'm a small business owner. I think I'm onto a great idea. Who can I turn to for assistance? So this is where SBA comes into the picture. They administer grants throughout the entire nation to set up centers to help people such as myself, to help out someone who has this niche product, regardless if it's a tangible item or an intangible item, to eventually grow your product, to scale up, to commercialize your products. And ironically, here in San Antonio, University of Texas San Antonio has a center that was just awarded a six-figure, I think it was $125,000 grant for that purpose, to help you all, the small business owners, to help with commercializing my products. I believe, and I have a little cheat sheet over here on my monitor, they're called the Texas Federal Innovation and Technology Transfer Program. The director for that center is Mr. Bijou Matthew, and I believe he's been involved with Startup San Antonio this week. So you definitely want to come in contact with this office because they're providing technical assistance at no charge. So in case you do want to apply for the SBIR, the STTR program, you know, now you have better ammunition to apply for these programs, because obviously we want to set you up for success. So SBA, what we do is we report back to Congress about the success of the SBIR, the STTR program. So we are not necessarily doing the hands-on for these programs, but with the grant programs that has been administered, such as the one UTSA has won recently, that's where we get to go back to Congress and look at the success of the program that's taking place. So again, traditionally loan programs, but I really wanted to focus on the grant opportunities for small business owners that have the opportunity to scale up eventually.
That is great. And I think you brought up a really good point, David, which is we're talking about where is the money, but in programs such as the one that you've mentioned, right, while you may not be providing funding, right? If they go to Bijo's office, for example, they may not get the funding, but they are getting something for free in return. And it's
right. So
quality service. So that's freeing up some of the funding that the company may now be able to invest on another activity, correct?
Right, and that's a great point. So instead of paying, you know, hundreds if not thousands of dollars for a business consultant to help you scale up your business, you can go to this office here, this center that's going to help you with the end goal of applying for the SBIR or the STTR grant.
Great. David, how do people take advantage of these opportunities? Is there a website? I know that there is a lot of, with the SBA is kind of the bigger umbrella, and there's a lot of different entities underneath. Maybe do they have to visit different places depending of the type of funding they are looking for, or how do they go about identifying what's the right place for them to submit an application on?
Absolutely. So great question, Sebastian. So in the entire state of Texas, if you're a small business owner and you want technical assistance, the UTSA Center actually helps any small business owner in the state of Texas. And for more information about the programs, the Small Business and Innovation Research Grant, or the STTR, go to SBIR.gov, and that's where you'll find out if you're eligible, how can I apply, and where can I go for technical assistance.
Thank you, David. All right, moving along. Orestes Hubbard. Mr. Orestes, you are with the MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency. There you go.
You got it right. Yes, sir.
But I also know that you've got some banking experience. So I think if you can tell us a little bit about both, it'll be very beneficial to everyone watching today. I know that most people, when they start thinking about funding, the very first place or the very first thing that comes to mind is, okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to see what my bank can do for me. So tell us a little bit about what type of activities or what type of companies should be looking into getting a loan from a bank. And then obviously tell us a little bit more about the MBDA and how do you guys support the funding aspect of entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Once again, thanks for the invite, Sebastian. I'm gonna break it down in two phases. One is gonna be what I currently do, which is the technical assistance side of the house, and then I'm gonna move on to the actual banking requirements and experience. So I've been running this minority center at the university at UTSA under the Institute for Economic Development for about 14 years, since 2006. Basically the function of this we actually have 4 centers under the minority center umbrella. And we focus on serving minority-owned firms, and we provide technical assistance. We have consultants in-house that are experts in certain business fields, and they provide one-on-one in-depth consulting to, in our cases, minority-owned firms. Okay, so we work with them to help them grow their businesses. So we primarily work with growing companies. We really don't work much with startup business, but I'm gonna go to that point in a second. So we help those companies grow their revenues through strategic partnerships and strategic planning. We have an export program where we help these clients of ours to do business primarily in Latin America, expand their market into foreign markets, be able to place their products and services abroad. That's one. We have another program that is the Advanced Manufacturing Center, where we have assistance provided to manufacturers that want to grow and become more competitive. So again, we have consultants in-house that will provide all those assessments or recommendations, those action plans. We also help clients get access to federal contracts or even B2B, business-to-business contracts, with corporate America, with other smaller businesses and so forth. Now, that's what the minority centers do. Now, under my umbrella, the big umbrella is the Institute for Economic Development. We have a very strong presence of the small business development centers, and they are the ones that provide technical assistance, very similar to what we do, but they don't focus on minority-owned firms. They focus on all small businesses, from the pre-venture to the startup company to the scale-up company, and the larger enterprises. By the way, they are actually partially funded by the SBA as well as the state of Texas. So they have a wide reach, and we as Institute, we can provide virtually assistance to anybody that comes through our door. Now, going back a little bit more about the access to capital side of the house, what we do under the minority centers is, again, we have consultants, experts, former bankers. I'm one of them, actually. I call myself a recovering banker because it was quite an experience, but I'm over that already. It's been 14 years since I've been away from banking. So, but the concepts are primarily the same. We sit down with the clients and we come up with a strategy for them to apply for a loan. We look at the opportunity to go through a traditional bank, the ones that across the street, the ones that are that you see as you drive on the freeway. Those are your regular, I'm gonna say your traditional lending sources. There are, however, other types of additional funding sources that by definition they're called alternate financial sources, such as asset-based lending, for example. That's a good example of access to capital that is not per se a traditional bank loan. So there's always ways to accomplish your goals. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get your loan through the bank. Now let me make another crossover into the banking side of the house. Now, because this is the startup week, I know that we're caring and talking to people that are trying to start up a business, or people that are, like I said, in the pre-venture, the feasibility phase, or even the startup phase. And just for the record, please do not kill the messenger. That was us to talk about the hardest process to obtain financing. When you are a new company, when you are not even starting a company, when you have just an idea and you have the background perhaps, and you have already all the pieces together, and you have 1,000 degrees of excitement, and you go to the bank is going to be stone cold. They're going to be looking at numbers, and they want to see your history. Now, the first reaction of yours is going to be, well, I don't have a history. I'm just starting. Well, that is a big stop right there from the bank's perspective. Okay, traditional lending usually won't allow a bank to lend you real money for you to start up a business on a traditional way. There is plan B, plan C, plan D. Very quick example, and I'm glad that David is here. You can go and get a SBA guaranteed loan and being able to, overcome that challenge, as long as you have the management, the technical, side. A lot of what Eric was describing, is a lot of what the bank is going to look for, and SBA as well, to guarantee the loan. Okay, so just because of the fact that your credit score, your FICO score is 850, doesn't mean that you're going to go to the bank and the bank is going to put the red carpet on you. That means that you fulfill one of the requirements, but there are so many requirements. The credit is one of them, and it's very important. Don't get me wrong, it's very important. Collateral is very important. So if you have an idea, if you even have, a concept, or even you went all the way to the process to get a patent, usually 99% of the times a patent has zero collateral value. And again, don't kill the messenger. I know that this is not a very popular answer, but I need to tell you the truth. Intangible assets are usually not assets that are lendable. Doesn't mean that they don't have a value. Let me just, for the record as well, be clear on that. Actually many times a patent is the epicenter and the success of the company, along with the management and the people around it. But on a lender's perspective, and that's what I'm trying to convey the message, that put yourself on the lender's perspective. And on the lender's perspective, lending institutions are risk averse by default. So when you approach a bank, the bank is going to be looking at how am I make some money without risking my money. So banks would like a zero risk. So if they see the slightest risk, the answer is going to be no. Okay. So that is your challenge. That's why it's very important that you get some technical assistance. And David, you're correct that Mr. Bijo Matthew, has received this funding, and he actually provides this specific type of service for technology companies that he can sit down with them and talk about, putting a business plan together and how to go and pitch the idea and, all those things. So it is very important that you get, assistance from everybody. I'm not saying anybody, I'm saying everybody. There is many of us out here in the community that can assist you. All you have to do is knock on the door and say, I need help me out to, sharpen, make me look good, basically. We can help you shape your proposal in a way that the bank or the funding source will look more favorably towards your proposal. But again, just know by default, this is going to be your single most difficult challenge, is to get a bank to a traditional lending source. Now, again, there is alternate financing. There's so many other financial institutions that will lend you money that are not banks necessarily, but there is, again, it's alternate lending. It's just look at it as your plan B. It is, again, by default, it's going to be possible, but there is a price to pay. Like they say, there is no free lunch. Well, usually traditional alternate lending, it is going to be more expensive. Why? Not because they want to take advantage of you. It's because your deal is riskier than going to the bank or getting a bank loan. If you get a bank loan, by the way, you usually are going to get the best rate possible. Once you get out of the bank, the lending community, and you go to alternate lending, it is going to cost you more. And when I say more, it's capital M. It can be like 2-3 times as much. So you need to account for all that before you even try to apply for a loan or start up a business.
And that is really good information, Orestes. Thank you so much. I think fortunately we do have institutions such as the SBA, the NBDA, that can help people get to that point where they are not as risky to the eyes of a banker, and hopefully help them get a loan if that's what they are looking for. Really quick, Orestes. So if people wanted to take advantage of what you guys have to offer at the MBDA, how do they go about that? Do you all have a website, a phone number, something like that?
Very simple. And I'm gonna share with you the Institute's information. I am part of the Institute. But if you reach out to the Institute, you get the whole, there's about a dozen different programs. I manage, the 3 of them. So there is more to it than what I personally offer. So if you go to iedtexas.org, IED stands for Institute for Economic Development, iedtexas.org. That is our main website. If you want to go see our individual website, you can go to San Antonio MBDA Center.com and you can reach us there. Now, if you go to the iedtexas.org, you have access to the entire institute. You can look at all the centers that are within the Institute for Economic Development. Our number is very simple, 458-2020, 210-458-2020. Very simple.
Thank you so much, Orestes.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Well, it almost sounds like so far we've heard from the angels, and I heard Eric talking about early stage companies and not startups. Then we heard from David, Elizondo, and Orestes, who are kind of hand in hand, and they are also talking about the risk aversion that some of their programs have to look into prior to providing capital to the entrepreneurs. But fortunately, and I think this is a good segue for our next panelist, we've got Luis Martinez with Trinity University, and he's not only going to be talking about the pitch competitions at Trinity, but more the ecosystem in general, specifically here in San Antonio. I think you guys don't necessarily have to have that proof of concept per se. It almost sounds like you will be a good fit for that person that is on the idea stage. Is that a fair statement, Luis?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to come in after Orestes, who's like, you're never going to get any money at all. Like, just sorry. So pitch competitions have evolved over the last 10, 15 years as being a really effective way of people who are at that early stage and trying to get a startup or prove a concept or prove an idea to get some early stage capital. If you think about it in sort of the sort of funnel of capital that Eric sort of talked about, these pitch competitions sort of serve in that sort of friends and family pre-seed stage to get people to get things started. One real phenomenal sort of great advantage of going to college right now is that every college almost has, or university has, a pitch competition specifically dedicated to early stage ventures. My colleague Randy Quinn at UTSA has the SITE competition, which is really sort of this wonderful collaboration between folks in sort of the school, their College of Business and their College of Engineering. And they're the oldest one here in San Antonio. Ours here at Trinity, our Stumberg Venture Competition, which was part of Startup Week last week, so you can check that out as part of the feed, is specifically focused for our undergraduate students, just like other collegiate pitch competitions or new venture competitions. What makes ours unique is that, number one, as a predominantly undergraduate serving institution, ours is only for undergraduate students, right? So we're giving real capital to college students in that sort of traditional, straight out of high school, first time going into college, first degree. One of the things that makes us also unique is that we are industry agnostic. So it doesn't matter to us whether or not you start a taco truck or a tech company. Some collegiate pitch competitions are that way. It doesn't really sort of matter what the industry segment is. We kind of really want you to sort of start your first business as a college student. That sort of mythology of I started my first business when I was in a dorm room is alive and well in universities. And so the other aspect of what we do that's different is that it doesn't matter as a Trinity student, whether you're a first year student or whether you are a graduating senior, whether you are an undergraduate pursuing a degree in business and engineering or an undergraduate pursuing a degree in accounting or sociology. We're industry agnostic, we're stage agnostic, we're major agnostic, and we invest up to $50,000 every year of real capital that we're sort of providing students in this kind of pitch competition. And an individual team can win up to $30,000 of early stage capital. Now, what's interesting about the sort of collegiate universe of pitch competitions is that most of this early stage capital is as a grant or as a convertible note, depending upon the kind of institution that you're at. So it's that wonderful sort of experience of going through Shark Tank, but no one takes a piece of your company, right? So that's an interesting aspect of this kind of universe. The other aspect of this universe on the collegiate side is that we're fortunate here in the state of Texas to have a wide range of collegiate competitions that are not only open to individual college students. So ours at Trinity is specifically for Trinity students. The one at UTSA Insight is for UTSA students. A&M has one, UT Austin has one, University of Houston has one, but that also that there's a sort of universe of collegiate competitions that are open for collegiate students, not only statewide or nationwide. So Rice University, for example, has the oldest and most prestigious sort of business model, business plan competition in the world. There's a great team out of here in San Antonio, out of the Health Science Center, Novothelium, that's completely raised all of their capital to start their business purely from these collegiate pitch competitions, right? They started here in San Antonio and they went through and competed at Rice. And so it's a really effective way of getting that early stage capital. Rice has one for sort of a formal business plan. Baylor University has one as well. Our friends up in Dallas at TCU have one really focused for those ventures that are focused on values-based or social entrepreneurship. And then there's these statewide competitions that are just specifically for folks in the state that are run out of UT Austin. So there's a wonderful universe of sort of collegiate pitch competitions. EO is, the Entrepreneur Organization has a version of this as well for sort of international college students to sort of launch and plan their own business. So there's a real effective sort of ecosystem that exists out there of college students being able to start their first business with not the kinds of needs that Orestes sort of talked about with regards to having a history or this kind of way. It's really a way of sort of proving a concept and proving that things are out there. Now, there's folks that are listening in that are saying, well, it's been a while since I've been in college. I really wish that existed when I was in college. I'm not in college anymore. What does that sort of universe look like? And we're fortunate here in San Antonio to have some really nice programs that enable folks that are here in the community to go ahead and pitch for money or to submit materials to compete for money. Launch SA has a wonderful program with their Venture Challenge program that enables sort of as a staged way for sort of companies to be able to go ahead and go through and get capital for their companies. And from my understanding, if I remember correctly, sort of industry-wide, it's a really phenomenal program that Ryan is running out of Launch SA. Then there are sort of specific programs. For example, Geekdom has its community fund, which is an early stage venture fund, which provides $25,000 per quarter in a convertible note for people to go ahead and start that. But you've got to be a member of Geekdom in order to take advantage of that. And then, of course, coming up at the end of San Antonio Startup Week / month will be the Tech Field competition, which is the county and the city who have come together to develop these kind of grants to really sort of fund early stage sort of emerging growth technology-based companies here in the county and in the city. So there are ranges of these kinds of pitch competitions, both sort of here in the city. There are these wider sort of pitch competitions that exist nationally, like Mass Challenge, which is here in Texas, Mass Challenge, Texas. It's a program that's based out of Boston, which is associated with an accelerator that enables you to sort of pitch. And the format of these kinds of competitions are as follows. There's always a sort of pitch Shark Tank style demo day aspect where you're pitching a deck to investors or judges to make the determination of who goes home with a big check. There's typically sort of materials that you need to develop either through a formal program or in advance of sort of that application that involve typically things like business plans or business model canvases or marketing plans that are a really important component for judges to evaluate, whether or not we're going to invest $10,000 or $5,000 or $50,000 in this particular kind of range of business. Most of these programs also have associated with them pitch practice, mentoring. So it's really an incredible dynamic way in which people can raise real capital to start their business. And again, this is sort of really early stage folks. So typically before they would go off to Alamo Angels or go off, it's that sort of validation that there's a real there. Now, for folks that are sort of thinking that that might be an interesting viable path for them, I invite them to sort of just, do searches and do a sense about sort of what the eligibility is for the various pitch competitions. Some of them will have certain restrictions with regards to industry segments. Others will have restrictions with regards to who can actually participate. For example, ours is just for Trinity College students. And so it's important to understand that as you're thinking about participating in these pitch competitions. But it's a wonderful universe of ways in which people can validate ideas, get mentoring, get some sort of real sense of traction in that early stage friends and families round or pre-seed round, which then really serves as a foundation for folks to go off and get a traditional loan or get support from sort of Alamo Angels or participate in programs that what sort of Cole will be talking about, early stage funding through sort of the Geekdom Fund or through RealCom.
Luis, I appreciate you sharing that and describing the whole ecosystem, because it almost sounds like we've got a lot of different options here. And one thing that I've learned, for example, is that there are some competitions that will accept you whether you go to that particular school or not.
Correct.
So if that is good, because some people may be thinking, okay, well, I'm stuck with the competition that they've got in my school, and that it doesn't seem like it's the case. So I guess the takeaway here is do your research, look at the different options that you have, and particularly with you and Trinity, if someone wanted to apply, if we get any Trinity students watching us today, do they have to go to a specific website?
So for Trinity students, it's easy. You just sort of look for the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship on our campus and contact our staff, myself, lmartin6@trinity.edu. We're more than happy to have you be part of our program. Our program is kind of unique in the sense that we run sort of calendar year. So we have a seed round that takes place in sort of March, where we have an open call to all Trinity students to be able to participate. They submit an early stage idea. From that sort of early call, we select approximately 10 companies to pitch in our early stage seed round. Of those 10 companies, we invest $5,000, typically in 5 teams. And we spend the summer with them, working full time, building their business, investing in them, so that by the time that summer is over, around September, beginning of October, those 5 teams who've taken those $5,000 then compete for $25,000 as the grand prize winner. So that's sort of the process that we have. My colleague Randy Quinn at UTSA, in their site competition, has a format where they have it sort of semester based upon sort of students that are enrolled. There's the Rowdy New Idea Pitch competition that UTSA have as well. So it's really about, if you're a college student sort of doing a search at your university, you typically want to look for an entrepreneurship center as the place that typically houses these sorts of things. And if you're searching for them sort of nationwide, as you mentioned, there are universities that are open for any entrepreneur that's currently in college, or like EO, they're looking for folks specifically in a specific region. And so what's interesting about the EO competition is that it sort of precedes sort of, city, local, regional, state, nationwide, international. So it's a really unique sort of universe that exists for early stage capital for folks to go ahead and start and build their business.
Luis, thank you so much. That was really, really informative.
Thank you.
Now, last but not least, we've got Cole Wallach. I know, Cole, that you are with RealCo, but you also have a little bit of interactions there with Geekdom Fund. So what is the whole thing about Geekdom Fund? And perhaps even myself, when I first got here, I was like, what is the difference between Geekdom and Geekdom Fund? So maybe we can start there.
For sure. So Geekdom is the co-working space where we have some startups working out of that Geekdom Fund has invested in. But Geekdom itself is really the co-working space, a space where you'll find a lot of startups, tech enthusiasts, geeks hanging out downtown. So Geekdom's more the space, and the Geekdom Fund is a totally separate entity, just shares names. We think there's a symbiotic relationship with sharing names, and the strength of both brands are very strong. And so the Geekdom Fund, being a separate entity, focuses on investing in early stage technology companies. So the Geekdom Fund has morphed over time. They had a first fund back in 12, that was a $3.5 million fund. They then went on to raise a $20 million fund and deployed that capital and are now raising their third fund, Geekdom Fund 3. And so the size of that is to be determined, but it will be larger than the first and second one. And they deploy capital all over the US, but have a handful of investments here in Texas, as well as here in San Antonio. But the profile of what they look for is pretty specific. They have a focus on what's called B2B SaaS. So this is companies who create typically a piece of software that they sell to other businesses. A lot of times when you're looking for venture capital, a lot of times these funds are writing larger checks. So a lot of times you're looking for capital that is on the order of $500,000 up to millions of dollars that you're raising for your funding round. And a lot of times this is looking for kind of what's called a growth or a scale stage. So you already have traction, you already have product market fit, you have a product that customers are buying, they like, and the capital at this stage is really for growth, to double down on what's working today and get your business to that next stage. So that's really the profile for venture. It's really not typically the idea stage. That's typically too early for venture capital. You know, when you're going out to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, got to imagine you have to have a lot of ducks in the row, a lot of things already figured out. You shouldn't really be in this stage of still trying to figure out what's the right fit for the product or the market. A lot of this has to be figured out already. And so in terms of, I guess, a lot of people might be asking, how do you get in touch with venture capital? You know, we have another fund in town, not just Alamo Angels, with the syndicate group of funding. We also have Active Capital and Geekdom Fund. And all of these, a lot of times, is just the outreach to the fund. But even better, my advice would be to try to get a referral into one of the partners at the fund. The reason is only because these funds get inundated with cold emails, just an overwhelm of cold emails of people looking for capital. And with that much volume, it's hard to sift through just cold emails to find what's a good fit. But if we get a referral from someone within our network that says, hey, you should really check out this opportunity, I met them or they reached out to me, more than likely we're going to take a look at that with more scrutiny than we would a cold email that might not look to be a fit, might maybe get a pass email very quickly. We'd spend more time on it if it came from a referral. So kind of a pro tip, if you want to make sure you get in the eyes of one of the partners at the fund, try to hustle to find someone who can refer you into the group. True probably for both angel networks as well as venture funds, and so both there. Quickly, I'll touch on RealCo real quick just to share our focus as well. So RealCo is an accelerator program. So we tend to play a little bit earlier stage than venture funds. We are investing $100,000. It's a fixed amount that we invest into companies that participate in our program. We take a program fee of 6% equity in the companies, and we help them grow to reach a point of $500,000 in revenue annually. That's kind of our launch off point, is to get companies there and then let them go beyond that. We also have a similar focus of the Geekdom Fund, focusing on that sector of B2B SaaS. And we have a carve out for what we call moonshots, both the fund as well as RealCo, which is these really, really big ideas that could fundamentally change an industry. Might not look like B2B SaaS, but we're super excited about the team, the founders, the opportunity that they're building that could really change an industry or how we interact with the world today. But that's few and far between. Our sweet spot is really this kind of companies that build a piece of software selling to other businesses. Our network's strength is around that. Our program is really built around scaling those companies. Generally, the best fit time for RealCo is companies that have a few customers, or at least indication from the market that there's a need in the market for the product that they're building. If it's just solely an idea, typically that's too early for us. We'll usually happy to talk with those companies and those founders, but we'll usually say, hey, here's the next check-in point that we should touch base. And usually that's minimum viable products built. They have some customers or users using it, and that's probably the best time to reach out to RealCo. Our job is to grow these companies to that $500,000 a year, as well as get them venture ready so they can go raise capital from either firms locally or beyond.
Thank you so much, Cole. And just like Luis, I think you've also talked about a whole ecosystem. And I always go back to that because I feel like the more options I have as an entrepreneur, the better off I can be in the future. And it'll be easier for me to achieve those goals that I have, right? And so it's not just about Geekdom Fund or Alamo Angels. You've mentioned Active Capital. You've mentioned different options. RealCo, of course, being not a fund, but an accelerator where they can still get funding from. And so people get a lot of different options, and that's really the beauty about everything that we've got going on here in San Antonio. As a reminder, guys, if you guys are watching us from any other places in Texas, even from down the valley, Corpus Christi, Houston, Austin, we like to think that we'll play nice with everyone, regardless of where you are coming from. I am fairly new to San Antonio, and I came to realize that this is in fact the friendliest city in Texas and possibly in the whole nation. So if you are not in San Antonio, don't feel discouraged. We will still like to help you and talk to you. So before we move on, Cole, how do people apply? I understand you are kind of wearing two different hats, RealCo and Geekdom Fund. So how do they apply to Geekdom Fund, and how do they apply for RealCo?
Yep. So RealCo, the easiest is to go to realco.com. You'll see a handful of call to actions that say apply now. Click on one of those and you'll see our application form. Geekdom Fund as well has an application form on their website. I'll suggest that if you feel you might be a bit too early for Geekdom Fund, I'll recommend you apply to RealCo. We look at all the early stage deals. If it's too early going through the Geekdom Fund, you might not get a follow-up because it's just really not a fit. So if that happens or feel that you're too early, come out to RealCo. We're happy to talk to you. With Geekdom Fund, again, the best is really trying to get that introduction, the cold email, cold outreach. We just get so much of it that sometimes you'll get lost in the weeds. And so try to get a referral in, try to reach out, network with like the group here today to try to build your own network to get referred into one of these funds or angel groups. Thank you, Cole. Well, at this point, I know this session goes from 12 to 1. We still got 8 minutes. And I believe I'm not sure that we're looking at the platform that everybody else is looking at, but if there is anyone from the team, the San Antonio Startup Week team that can help us maybe share the questions that we could possibly have, that'll be great.
For right now, we don't have any questions.
No questions. All right. Well, that's good. I guess we finished on time. We finished before the time. Does anyone have any final comments? Do any of you want to make a final comment? I see David, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, so we were talking about assistance, and I know the bulk of this presentation is called Where is the Money? And I really emphasize the SBIR and the STTR grants, but I also do want to plug the SBA micro lenders that are in town, which is Lift Fund and People Fund, because periodically they are giving out grants to small businesses within the respected cities. So People Fund, based out of Austin, they were doing grant programs in Austin. San Antonio Lift Fund, they're based out of here. They were doing grants as well, especially businesses impacted by COVID. So I would highly recommend for those on this particular call to keep tabs on those two SBA micro lenders. Again, that's Lift Fund and People Fund for potential grant opportunities.
And then I've got something I'd like to share. So there's people who probably went through this call and perhaps felt that the panel did not speak to them, right? This is like, I'm looking for money and like none of these people are anyone I want to get any money from. I'd like to urge you and all the folks that even qualify for these programs, that the cheapest capital you can raise as a startup is called revenue. So like, build your business, focus on sales, build a real business, and the capital to grow and scale that business can happen. So don't be discouraged if you feel that of our panel, none of these options seemed right for you, either at the stage that you're at or in the kind of industry segment that you're in. The easiest way to get capital for your business is to have a business and have paying customers and a margin to be able to grow your business organically and bootstrap. So I think bootstrapping is another aspect of where is the money, and that's called building a real business where you're using those proceeds to fund and build that business. So I wanted to make sure we have a shout out for all the people that are out there bootstrapping and building real businesses. There are real heroes that are out there building businesses, and trust me, the angels and the venture capital folks and the early stage venture funds, they love it when you come in and say, I haven't taken a check yet, but I really need you to get me to this next stage. It helps really sort of validate that sort of risk or validate that proof that the team is right, that the idea is right, and you're building a business. So don't be discouraged. Another source of capital is called build a business.
Appreciate that comment. Totally agree with you, Luis. Thank you so much. Any other comments? I don't see any more. So if nothing else, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you're watching this after the fact, which could certainly happen, I believe that you will still be able to see all the links to the different resources that were shared today. So make sure that you look, you click through the different resources and try to familiarize yourself with these websites and all the information that you can get out of it. We only had an hour today, guys. There were 5 panelists, and each one of them was able to only share very high level points about what we've got going on. But if you really like to deep dive a little more and look in more detail as of whether you are a good fit for what they are trying to offer and what type of requirements, if there is a criteria or what the application looks like, I will highly encourage you guys to look into these links and find more information. And with that being said, it's almost 1 p.m. Thanks to all panelists for being here today. And I hope everyone has a safe and fun weekend.
Thank you, Sebastian. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much.
Sebastian.
You guys.